thank you all for coming. I'll introduce myself and we'll do a round of intros. But really excited to be on a panel and with a focus of institutional crypto adoption. Our background, what we do at Propellor is we're a full stack CFO down to staff accounting solution for VC-backed startups. And that it was interesting when I was thinking about some of the questions that we're looking at. What does institutional mean? And does it mean a Series C crypto native firm? Is this a TradFi? And I think that could be an area that we can talk about, especially with some of the software applications. But anyway, I lead the blockchain practice at Propeller Industries. We're working with about 50 or so Web3 native and blockchain related clients. I've been in the space for about 5 years. Got very lucky with our first client being Solana Labs in 2019. But really the gist of I think what we do is really focused on helping bring on-chain activity to the P&L and to the balance sheet and help our clients, number one, stay out of jail, make sure they know what taxes that they've got to pay. Number two, know what is their runway and how much time they have till they run out of money. And number three, really make sure that they are in the best possible place to go raise money for their next round. And obviously, we've been doing this with fiat forever, and digital assets create a entirely new sector of this accounting world that we work in. But anyway, sorry. I will hand it off to Megan.
Great. Hey everyone, great to be here with all of you. Excited for our chat. I am the CEO at Franklin Payroll. Franklin was started up 2 years ago out of the struggle I had of operating a multi-currency balance sheet company in the Web3 space, and thought that the biggest bill that companies have is payroll, and wouldn't it be cool if we can inject crypto directly into people's paychecks and think about more innovative, faster payment solutions in the payroll space. So that's what we do. We work with a bunch of Web3 companies that are super fun, but increasingly we are also working with more Web2 companies that are just looking for ways to be able to move money faster, do kind of like innovative things like unlimited payroll runs, instant payroll funding, without some of the overhead that our TradFi payroll company friends require. So excited to chat with you guys.
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Pat White. I'm the CEO of Bitwave. Bitwave is the leading digital asset finance platform for businesses using crypto. So what we like to say is the day that a business decides to bring crypto onto their balance sheet, they just create a whole bunch of problems for their CFO and their operations teams. And we have solutions up and down the stack, from accounting to tax to gain loss, financial operations, FP&A, you name it, to help businesses use crypto. So I'm excited. We've been working with Propeller since the very, very beginning. We've been working with Franklin now for a couple of years. It's great to be on a panel here, and it should be fun because I think institutions as a topic is a broad range from what, Sam, you would think of as institution to you as on the payroll side to us. We work with a lot of the big financial services companies out there that is almost like, I kind of think of the traditional TradFi big companies as institutions too. And so there's the range of it is, from a 500-person company that's just big for crypto to like a 50,000-person company that's like, old school Fortune 500 institution. So it should be a good conversation today. I'm excited.
Great. Hadley Stern, great to be here. Co-founder of a company called Cold, which is going to be a next generation digital asset custodian. I've been in the digital asset custody space since about 2014, started my career at Fidelity, where I was part of that very early team there, and most recently was at Bank of New York Mellon. Certainly have point of views on
what an institution
is, and I think it should be an interesting
BNY, they count. Yeah, they count.
I think so.
So we've got about a half a dozen questions, but I was thinking make it a little bit more fun. I'll kind of lob a few things out, but I would encourage panelists to kind of jump on and let's just see where it goes. And if it's a total disaster, I apologize ahead of time.
Oxford style debate. Any question we don't like, you get lobbed right back at you. So
not too many. Yeah, it's just far away back. Hadley, we'll start with you. What would you say the state of adoption of cryptocurrencies within institutions are today? And it's meant to be very vague, and would love for you to interpret.
Crypto and blockchain, just in
Cryptocurrencies,
Crypto.
and then I would love for you to double click.
Yeah.
We are going to have some thoughts on
Okay, sure.
other
Blockchain
applications
versus
and how institutions are actually looking at the technology,
Yeah.
and that's a question to come.
So I guess within institutions, again, depending how you define it, I'd say crypto adoption is incredibly small.
Yeah.
In reality, you have, an institution like Fidelity, which is leading the way for and has for a variety of reasons. But I would define it as infinitesimal from an institutional standpoint. And then, if I may just add the blockchain piece, I think that's probably at zero. So the way I think about it is that if you think about the ETFs and the crypto that is done by institutions, and maybe I'm being too negative, there, with the ETFs, it is getting bigger, but it's almost like if you're asked for cloud adoption, it would be like institutions are investing in cloud but not using cloud. So I'd say there's evidence that institutions are starting to invest in crypto, but they're not really using the underlying public blockchain.
That's interesting. My favorite thing that happened last year when the ETFs came out was, BlackRock's a $26 trillion company, whatever.
Yeah.
This is like unfathomable amount of money. And that was like the tagline was, well, Bitcoin now has $26 trillion of money going to flow into it. It's like, well, maybe. But you're definitely seeing pickup. Between
absolutely.
On all the ETFs, like everyone now has announced that they have some amount of their clients holding ETFs, that's crypto and institution right now.
And actually, Hadley, I'd like for you to start the second question as well, because I think it drafts off of where you ended, and then you guys can hop in and fight it out. But what do you think the biggest challenges are? And maybe let me actually double click on that. Again, when you start thinking about TradFi institutions versus businesses that are adopting the technology versus, obviously if you're crypto native, you're not facing challenges, you're living in the space.
Yeah.
But from a few different kind of lenses, if the investment's happening, what do you think the biggest blockers are that make it not a reality at this?
From the investment side.
From the institutional side, what are the what are the headwinds, and why not?
I think it goes back to the creation of Bitcoin itself, which was, the white paper was a shot across the bow to TradFi and traditional institutions. And I'm sure, your companies deal with this as a challenge. It's a hard technology to work with. It's decentralized. It's, a whole form of money. There's compliance reasons. There's a whole list of reasons that just make it very complicated for traditional institutions to grapple with and have it become part of, how they, transfer money.
And Megan, actually, maybe you could hop in from a payroll perspective. Again, we work across 50 or so projects that are crypto native or crypto adjacent, but we've got other clients that are in the space. What are you seeing in terms of adoption for payroll and cryptocurrency applications?
Yeah, I think that the last panel had a pretty good definition actually of what does it mean to be an institution and what are the different levels that we should think about, where you have like institutional money managers, you have enterprises who are businesses that maybe are incorporating some like Web3 technologies, and then there's kind of everyone else, the retail users and things like that. And I think that adoption has taken different forms across those different categories. My first job in crypto was working at Consensus in 2016, and we were talking about institutional adoption of crypto. And so maybe it's a question of perspective.
8 years later, same conversation over and over again.
Yeah, but compared to now, we really do see a lot more traction. Whether you look at it as a portion of the global economy, whatever, it's a different question. But I think that I would bucket it into two different categories, perhaps, where there's enterprise and institutional adoption of payments, so stablecoins as a new kind of payment rail, and then there's the investable side of things. So whether it's Robinhood, enabling different tokens to be purchased like equities on their app, or institutions getting exposure to crypto, although not holding it directly, perhaps through ETFs and things like that. We're really excited about payroll as a great use case. Certainly international remittances is a big one, we talked about on the last panel as well. So companies that are increasingly more hiring remotely, managing their teams remotely, contractors in different locales want exposure to USD without the pain points of international wires. And so consolidating that from a back office perspective, but also just increasingly in the US, we see more W-2 employees who want to have stablecoins as part of their paycheck because it's their most cost-effective on-ramp.
One interesting thing, one thing to think a lot about when it comes to adoption as a general concept is that businesses don't tend to adopt for fun. Like an enterprise like Fidelity doesn't go and adopt because it's a cool, handy thing to do. Like there have to be business process drivers that are really causing adoption to want to get picked up. And so like where you see blockchain adoption in the big institutions is solving problems that they have, which is things like settlement. Like how do you do really, really fast settlement between the large institutions, cutting out as much of the middleman and the middleman processing fees as possible. So we are seeing, Onyx from JP Morgan is starting to do a lot of this. And I don't, it's hard to judge the numbers that they kick out because they'll say like billions of dollars and who knows if that's true or not. But that's like, people are saying that like you're seeing good blockchain adoption deal with hard problems that they have. The stablecoin stuff it's still just this side of nascent. Like it's hard to get money to Turkey. Like it's hard to get money to certain parts of the world. And you take, you're sending money to India as a business, you're paying 10% fees on that. So there's awesome opportunity there. Like there's such great opportunity there, but you have to be geared up on the other side. Like the person receiving that money has to be able to handle the stablecoin. There has to be an ecosystem on the other side. Like, because no matter what, they have to go from the stablecoin to their local currency at some point, and or be able to take that stablecoin and actually buy a burger with it or whatever you buy. Like, yeah, so it's.
So actually, Pat, one of the things that at Propellor, when we started working in the space, we were tracking all of our digital asset inventory in spreadsheets, and it makes me shudder to think that was the best possible approach. With Pat, Bitwave, and other technologies in the space, it is getting easier to account for this. But when you are working with both crypto native and then also institutional clients that I know that you have, what is the eagerness of accounting departments, non-Propeller, but again, folks who are going to be responsible for making sure that the monthly close happens, that they're using the subledger properly. How has that adoption been of the technology that would facilitate actually, again, interacting with cryptocurrencies and just blockchain in general? Going back to our portfolio, as I mentioned, we've got 50 clients that are crypto related. We've got another 300 that are CPG, SaaS, and other businesses. And for the last 4 years, I've been saying that in 5 years, 100% of our clients are going to be, will have exposure to crypto, blockchain technology, and will necessitate the need for crypto accounting. And I'm pretty sure there's a question in there somewhere, but I know that, Pat, you could probably run with it.
I'll just answer whatever question I want. Bitwave, no. So I think it's actually, it's super interesting. I love our clients that are, actually, I love them when they're not deep crypto because it's really, really fun. Like, and obviously, like their accountants are a mixed bag in terms of, you have some people that are really, really conservative and don't want to do anything new and are terrified about everything. And in some situations, they're being thrown headfirst into the deep end of the swimming pool, where like their CTO comes in and they're kicking off a crypto project, and like this is the accounting team that got tagged to do all the accounting work for crypto. And this there's a deer in the headlights, moment for the accounting team. They're like, well, we know nothing about this. Most accountants don't do it. Like a lot of the stuff that we take for granted in the crypto accounting world, things like impairment and stuff like that, most accountants don't do. Like you have one intangible asset on your books, which is like your domain name, and that's about it. Like maybe a couple things here and there. And so like having to like learn all this stuff, you have to find accountants that get excited about learning. And that's when you find them, it's super, super, super fun. But then half of our job really is training. Like it's teaching people from literally ground zero. All right, this is an address. Like here's what it looks like on the blockchain. Here's what happens when money moves between. By the way, one transaction can have 35 different components moving back and forth, and no one's, of course, ready for that piece of it. So I like it. I mean, it's honestly, it's a headwind in the overall industry of conservative accountants don't want to be doing this, but they often are dragged along by the tech teams.
Well, I see this firsthand from colleagues at Propellor. Accountants don't generally get into accounting because they like uncertainty. It is a very rule-based profession. They want to do AP every morning. They want to do bank recs every Friday. They do payroll every other Thursday, and they do a close call, and they're home at 4:30. Well, not all of them, but but it is the uncertain systems that are developing, regulations that are uncertain is not a comfort zone for many accountants.
Nope. And it's fun because like we're getting to see the thing that I always like about this is that how many major accounting shifts have happened over the last like 20 years. Like one of the last ones was like derivatives accounting. That was the ASC 6. Like not everyone touches that stuff. So we're in this place where like every single year there's brand new guidance coming out around accounting. It's actually a really fun place. So accountants that like that are super excited about it. Accountants that don't are real.
Next question will be Hadley and Megan. You can take it one at a time or have maybe some interesting conversations about this. But as you're building in the Web3 space, what are some of the considerations, especially with evolving regulations and just the challenges that you guys are facing for building products? And
Sure.
I would love to hear you guys kind of play off each other on your experiences.
Yeah, I think that for us, there are a lot of companies out there that say they run payroll, but they're just doing contractor payments from one place to another, which is quite simple. We wanted to go to market with this value proposition that we're tax compliant. We are staying on top of all of the changing rules. So when we have a customer signing up in the United States, as we're collecting all this information from them, there are like 7 states in the US that explicitly prohibit crypto as a form of payments. So if you,
right?
yeah,
I didn't know that. Which states? Or just one or two of them?
Well, New Jersey is one.
What?
And
I
Maryland.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So anyway, and like, why would anybody know that? If you're a business that's just looking to start, you're bootstrapping your team, you look to experts or to your providers to be able to give you that kind of information. And so baking that into our platform from the beginning is important, and staying on top of it as like the world evolves is also pretty important. I remember back in the day, just living and dying by the IRS Twitter handle, like waiting for them to come out with new guidance that came out like 9 months late or whatever. So I think it's certainly like a job, but I think it's a worthwhile job to do if it helps us be able to onboard more companies and more enterprises, make it easier for institutions to adopt this kind of technology, for sure. But it's a moving goal.
And I think this is a perspective from a much earlier point in development, and kind of I'd say this is more of like, what do you see on your roadmap of the challenges that you're going to be facing as a builder?
Yeah, I mean, to say it's dynamic right now is to say the least, right? We have President Biden sitting on a potential veto of SAB 121, which was a SEC accounting rule that limits certain players in the space from really building business of any meaning. So I think he has until next Wednesday, so everyone's waiting to see what happens there. You have the recent legislation fit Congress. So and then you have the upcoming election and all the dynamics there. So I think from a custodian standpoint, from a TradFi standpoint, the next 12 to 18 months will be very dynamic, to say the least. And I think, the ETF was a point in time, an amazing accomplishment, but it happened through a lawsuit, right? It was not the SEC saying yes, it was the SEC being forced to say yes. So that's worth remembering. So, and that was thanks to Grayscale, and then unlocked all this value and business for everyone else. And then the ETH ETF somehow gets approved very quickly, which just seems kind of bizarre. So I think anyone I would just say unpredictability is going to be with us. I
just want to also double click, you were getting into the custody space. There was I guess it was Q4, but the qualified custodian guidelines that came out that were problematic, but would love to hear your take on that, and obviously that directly impacts kind of what your roadmap is looking like, I'm guessing.
I think, again, this is just part of the shifting sands, and we're going to be a New York chartered trust license, but any custodian has to sort of make some decisions, and Anchorage is unique because they did it through the OCC charter as a bank. That's one way to go, but the qualified custodian is also kind of strange because it seems like there's different rules for crypto than there is for other types of assets like gold. So our point of view is that this will inevitably change. We're building a company for the sort of $2 trillion of assets that are pegged to public blockchains now, but we're building it for the vision when that number does become 10, 20, 30 trillion, when all types of assets are pegged to public blockchains, including securities, et cetera. So that's really where we're going after. I believe it's inevitable, but it's going to take a long time with the regulatory, and it's a huge change.
What's the custodian market look like? So if SAB 121 actually gets changed, so if FIT 21 gets through, which is a huge if, like enormous if, but if SAB 121 actually gets kind of rolled back, it'll be really interesting for the market because suddenly it actually opens it up for Bank of America to offer custodian services, right?
All the banks. I mean, we launched the business at Bank of New York Mellon, and pieces that were put on hold because of SAB. But yeah, suddenly big banks can become custodians in a way that they just can't now.
You wouldn't even touch it, it's just not worth it.
There's balance sheet reasons for why it's pretty much impossible for too big to fail banks.
Interesting, this is from somebody who is in the DC Beltway, but there's a stat of, I think it's about 30% of promised vetoes never happen. And I think that there's an encouraging, I guess the FIT 21 vote, the number of Dems that crossed over.
It was basically bipartisan, which in this political
It was as close as
environment-
bipartisan as we've seen in the last few years.
It's kind of who would have predicted crypto would be the one thing that brings
equalizer.
the country.
Well, it's always been my take on it, though. It's like I hated that crypto became a politicized issue because this never should have been. Like it never should have turned into this hot potato. So it's great to actually see that happen. And it'd be interesting to see if it gets past the Senate, though. I mean, that's the hard question on the.
So, question for you, Pat. So, and I think we're talking about sort of what is in front of a new venture. But Pat, you actually did have a SaaS business. You sold to Cisco, and obviously you've been at Bitwave for some time.
Almost like 7 years now. It's crazy.
How the journey of a Web 2 build versus a Web 3 build? What are some takeaways and observations and things that you wish you did or did not do differently?
It's an embrace of volatility. In order to be in crypto, you have to embrace volatility. Like this is not a ecosystem for the faint of heart. This is not an ecosystem for people that don't like uncertainty. This is not an ecosystem that just wants to kind of cruise. Crypto is by its very nature, it's fits and starts of different things happening. And it's also like, it ends up being really interesting what actually hits. I mean, I tend to think of crypto, over the last 6-7 years we've been doing this, I think of it in terms of the summers that we've had. Like we had the summer of, 2020 was summer of DeFi, and then we had the summer of NFTs, and then we had the summer of recession, deep, dark winter. And now that we're coming out of all of it. And so there's been these waves that just continuously come through, and you have to start at some point. You get to the point where you have to kind of step back and be very comfortable with the ambiguity and not get too excited about any individual thing that's happening, and just stay pretty, solidly bullish on crypto, but not all in on RWA or not all in on DeFi or whatever it is on that side. Because there's just, even at this point, we don't know. DeFi to me was always the absolute killer app for crypto. But honestly, TVL is way down. Everything in DeFi is kind of off. And we've had, there's going to be issues with Uniswap's going to have issues with with the SEC here. So even DeFi, which I thought was such a cinch for that, is going to be a tough one. So it's just you have to embrace the industry, embrace the bull, but not get too attached to the individual pieces. And that's just not what Web 2 was like.
Question for you. So if you had to predict what 2024 crypto summer would be, what would you say?
I guess what we're saying is restaking. This is gonna be the summer of restaking. As people get super excited about like different ways you can take staking and make it more liquid. And that's because staking was always the killer. If we're talking about institutions, ETH staking is the killer use case for institutions, right? This idea that you can get great exposure to a cryptocurrency, but then also earn a good 3, 4, 5% yield on top of it. And then the idea that you can then turn that liquid, and then you can then take that and earn tokens on it could be really, really interesting.
I would say it's a controversial take, I would say, but I like it. If I were to answer the question, I would say it's account abstraction. And I think that this is a huge deal for businesses and for retail adopters looking to get into crypto or like use things like stablecoins more. This ability to spin up a wallet in-app where you're not managing private keys. I feel like that's 2024 summer.
So it's funny because like I love that answer more than anything.
Wallet summer.
Yeah.
Wallet summer.
You've heard it here first.
It's not gonna be it's gonna be the summer of mainstream
of no
adoption.
wallets.
Like account abstraction is gonna be when we actually get like I poke fun at my grandma, like she has yet to use crypto, but like there will be a point at which she actually does touch crypto somehow.
I'm going to chime in because I think that, this came up on something I was reading, but I think the technology is an infrastructure technology. Everyone is talking about AI and how cool ChatGPT is. There are retail applications, but it is an infrastructure technology. And anyway, I think you don't know where your data is stored for the most part. You don't care, or my mother doesn't know and doesn't care, I should say. I think maybe we've got only a few minutes left, but maybe like a mini speed round. But I guess you can answer this a number of ways. But what is your hope for institutional adoption, kind of by use case of crypto? Is it going to be treasury? Is it going to be blockchain technology that will facilitate fill in the blank payments? Is there what is the ultimate use case that we have discovered or haven't discovered yet?
For me, I would say for the institutions out there that are listening, just do it on public chains. I think the advent of some of these private chain technologies is long gone, and we still see some of them staying alive by just some R&D departments at larger money managers. Do it on chain, on a public chain.
I swear that Hyperledger, the Maersk deal that they did with IBM, set back supply chain on blockchain by like 5 years, and it bugs the heck out of me because it's such a killer use case. But like because there was like $100 million investment in it that just didn't happen. That's tangential. For me, it's payments. Like this. Crypto is going to be about payments. The killer use case for crypto is moving trillions of dollars around the world instantaneously. So I think we're all waiting for that. There's a cold start problem here where if I'm going to pay someone, they need to be able to take that payment. So you need to have network effects. You need to get someone on the other side needs to be able to take a payment that you're going to send. So we're in that moment where we're starting to see. We work with Coinbase on payments, which is awesome. We're starting to see more and more vendors accept payments in crypto. But we're still at the compared to the overall ecosystem, we're at the 0.0001% of vendors not anywhere close to critical mass.
Yeah, I agree violently on the public blockchain piece. I think private blockchain is an oxymoron. So I think, and I also agree on the payments piece. I'm just excited for the day when an architecture session in institutions or product design sessions, public blockchain is part of the flow. And it's part of the, however it's used in that flow, obviously used in a meaningful way for the way that it should be used. And I'm optimistic it will happen. I think Mark Andreessen has a great saying, software will eat the world, which I think that happened with cloud. It took a long time for some elements of our of institutions, but I think it's the same with public blockchain.
And that's a great answer. That's a really good answer.
I think it is. I'm seconding, and I think the compute application, and nothing is more soul crushing than when I'm at a cocktail party and someone who's not in the industry says, "Well, you work in crypto. What should I buy?" And so, I think the technology as a computing platform, as a world computer, is that's I think was one of the things that made it super exciting for me in my early days. But how are we doing time?
My answer to that's always ETH 8 years ago. Is like that was a good one. ETH like right at the ICO level was a good one.
I always say I'm not a registered investment advisor.
All right. Well, I guess how about what's one thing that what's a narrative that is overplayed, underplayed, or a narrative that you believe in that hasn't been really come to the surface?
Well, what I would say is sometimes when I say I run a payroll company, people are like, who would want to get paid in crypto? And I was like, there's a lot. There just may not be like in your like New York City sort of like startup. So exposure to USD assets via stablecoins is actually a huge like net benefit for the US economy. And so, it's kind of interesting to hear some of the larger sort of speculation around it.
I think we're getting the hook, so if we want to you've got 30 seconds, go.
Yeah, I think that the underserved thing here is we talked for a long time early on about banking the unbanked. I don't think we've seen that happen to the scale that I would like to. And a lot of that comes down to you can't do a banking product for Africa if you're doing it on ETH at $4 a transaction. So we're still in a very nascent phase of what it takes to bank less the rest of the world and all of that. But that's the part I get super excited about.
I think payments too. I think payments are still, that early use case for Bitcoin. It's been interesting to see stable coins try to take that narrative, but I'm bullish on payments.
Great. Well, thank you all, and
thank you, Sam.
This was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.